Hi, everybody. Gene here. One of the things that I am always trying to do is I'm always trying to find new innovative ways to approach tapping, to see if there are things that we can do, simpler things, more sophisticated things to get better results. And I've been playing around every single morning in this thing that I'm calling the lab, where I have a whole list of ideas. And a couple of weeks ago, one of the things I stumbled upon is I tried some tapping to the Tao Te Ching and found some really fascinating results. So this week in the podcast, we're going to talk about how I use the Tao Te Ching to do some really powerful tapping, how you can use that document or really anything at all as a way of finding tapping phrases to help you get better results with your tapping. This is Gene Montrose telling welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 541, originally aired October 26, 2022. Everyone, I hope this finds you well wherever you are, whatever time of day you're getting a chance to listen to this. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Before we jump in and talk about the unique ways that we can use different pieces of literature to create some transformation with our tapping, two quick announcements. Number one, we have a free 10-part guide on how you can use tapping to eliminate self-sabotage. All you need to do is go to tappingqa.com, click on that big blue button, enter your email address, and every day for the next 10 days, we'll send you one small bite-sized tool that will help you to get more out of your tapping. Number two, a big shout out and thank you to all of the supporters of the Tapping Q&A podcast. These are people who voluntarily support the show and they get some amazing thank you gifts. One of the things that they're currently getting is access to my lab notes. So not just what we're going to be talking about today, but all of the experiments, what I'm learning, and how I'm creating transformation for myself and then for my clients. If you would like access to the lab notes and support the Tapping Q&A podcast and receive some other amazing bonuses, all you need to do is go to tappingqa.com/support. I am no expert by any stretch of the imagination in Taoism or the Tao Te Ching. I was introduced to it, like a lot of people in the Western world, in the late 80s, early 90s through the book The Tao of Pooh and the Day of Piglet, where they were using Winnie the Pooh characters to explain this philosophy. When I was in college, I took a world religions class, and we spent some time with it. And I ended up with a New English version of the Tao Te Ching by Stephen Mitchell. And I'll leave a link in the show notes so if you want to see the particular translation. And I found it to be something through my adult life. If I was just glancing through it, reading a passage or two or a couple of pages in the evening, is it something that I found to just be really calming for me? Just giving myself a chance to kind of step out of the day-to-day experience of my life and see things a little bigger, see things through the lens of archetypes and the way that we can show up in the world. And so I've been, like I said, doing these tapping labs. And for the longest time, I've had this in my notes in one way or another. What would tapping with the Tao Te Ching look like? What would tapping with the Tao Te Ching look like? And so for a number of mornings, I experimented with that. And I found that because of the nature of the text, it's written in a way that's supposed to kind of just poke you in a subconscious way. So you think about things in a different way. And like I said, that's very regularly the type of experience I have with this. But as I was going through it, there was one particular section of one particular chapter that I found particularly useful. And so this is the second paragraph from chapter 15, again from the New English version translated by Stephen Mitchell. And this is the passage I encountered, and I'm going to share with you kind of how I tapped with that and how it made a difference. So it's talking about masters, and it says, "They were careful as someone crossing an iced-over stream, alert as a warrior in an enemy territory. Courteous as a guest, fluid as melting ice, shapeable as a block of wood, receptive as a valley, clear as a glass of water." And so as I was reading through that particular passage and as I was tapping, what I did was at the end of each sentence, I just kind of paused for a moment and thought, what would it look like if I had that characteristic? They were as careful as someone crossing an iced over stream. And so as I was tapping and I was thinking about that and I was watching someone do that, there were a couple of things that came to mind of someone in that position. They have purpose. They're trying to get somewhere, but they're not rushing. And they're being really thoughtful and respectful of their environment. Because if they don't treat the environment that they are in, then things are very, very fragile. And there could be real peril inside of that. And so then as I thought of that, I thought of where are the places in my life that I want to move in that particular way. Move with purpose, but caution. And I started thinking about the things that I'm changing in my business. And once we get into December, you're going to start hearing about a lot of the really cool things that we're creating. But I'm not rushing into it. It's actually been something I've been working on for a number of months. And the reason why I haven't shared it with you yet is because I want it to be ready. So I'm delicately moving with purpose. And as I'm envisioning myself in that way, any of the resistances around creating that in my business were coming forward. And it just became a really easy thing for me to tap on. Alert as a warrior in enemy territory. Again, I just started to think about where are the places in my life that I need to be on guard, but not so on guard that I am tense and moving in a way that is dangerous. Courteous as a guest. It gave me an opportunity to reflect on how do I show up in other people's lives? Am I thoughtful, deliberate guest? And I don't mean that just in their space, but am I rushing in and running over people with my amazing information? Or am I showing up more and from a state of gratitude? The fact that someone's even giving me their ear is something that I should be gracious and appreciative of. And as I thought of that, I thought of those times that I'm not showing up well or those times that I am. And again, as I see myself in the world living through these vignettes, I bump into my limiting beliefs, and while tapping, I'm just softening that and helping myself to show up in that way. Fluid as melting ice. I'd never thought of melting ice as fluid, but if you've ever taken an ice cube that's started to melt and just pushed it across the kitchen table, how it just moves effortlessly. And I started thinking about where are the places in my life that I would like to create change and movement in a way that feels more frictionless. And as I thought of that, I thought of my physical health and how recently, because of an injury, how much of a struggle it has been. And how could I reframe that journey into how do I be soft and gentle in my body? How do I move in a more frictionless way and allowing myself to slide towards what I want? Shapeable as a block of wood. As I was tapping on that, I gave a sense of something that could be carved but sturdy. It doesn't say shapeable as Play-Doh, shapeable as a mud pie. But shapeable as a block of wood. And I thought about how are the ways that I want to be changed and transformed, but aren't temperate, aren't temporary, the way that Play-Doh might be put in that shape, the way that Lego bricks, when they're stuck together, can snap apart. What does that look like in my life? Receptive as a valley, clear as a glass of water. How do I show up in the world where I'm ready to receive? And one of the things that for me, clear as a glass of water, the thing that strikes in me is, as a practitioner, I'm always trying to be the color of water, reflecting back the people who are in front of me. And where are the places in my life that I'm showing up where I'm not? Where I'm showing up with agenda? And not that I disappear, but how can I be present in all of those ways? And this is some of the most esoteric approach to tapping. This isn't find something I want to do. This is the emotion I'm feeling in the moment and how do I make myself feel better, which are really, really great. But sometimes, for me, on a Saturday afternoon, on a Tuesday evening, when I'm doing some of my more longer tapping sessions. Because when I tap in the morning, it's very productive. It's setting me up for the day. It's clearing my limiting beliefs about the actions that are going to happen personally and professionally. Where typically one night a week and on one of the weekend days, I spend some time more luxuriating in the process, going after something that is bigger. And so I found this really useful. They were careful as someone crossing an icy stream, alert as a warrior in enemy territory, courteous as a guest, fluid as melting ice, shapeable as a block of wood, receptive as a valley, clear as a glass of water. And so one thing that you might consider, one thing you might try, is to find a piece of literature that is evocative for you. I think for this particular thing, a sacred text, some poetry, something that is a little more symbolic might be more useful for this process. But I certainly know fiction stories and passages from fiction stories that resonate something with me emotionally. That there are actually a couple of scenes from a recent television series where I regularly go back and just watch one scene because of the dynamic that is playing out and seeing it and feeling that human experience. That's the reason why I just love live theater, because I can be immersive in that way. And so recognizing the fact that we might be able to draw some of that into our tapping practice. So, as a recommendation, not homework, not something that you might do regularly, but if this is something that resonates with you, give yourself permission to do a little tapping sometime this week in a more elliptical, visionary, artistic way. And if this isn't something that resonates with you, that's awesome as well. That's the beautiful thing about this amazingly flexible tool. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Sometimes when I'm asking for feedback, it's like, well, this is what I think. Do you agree or do you not? I'm like, this is just kind of wacky. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I can always be reached at support@tappingqna.com. If you go to the website, you can click on that contact link. You can drop me a note. I would love to hear from you. If you know someone in your life, and you might, who would be interested in this kind of wackadoo topic, please be our ambassadors, pass it along. Don't spam your inbox. But there might be one or two people who you want to share this with and have a more comprehensive conversation with them about how this might fit into your tapping practice. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast. Remember, in podcasting parlance, subscribe is always free. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. Basically, most places online you find audio. Just search for Tapping Q&A. Click subscribe, click follow, and most importantly, turn on those notifications so when a new episode comes out, you're notified right away. For the Tapping Q&A podcast, is Gene Montrestelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyright Gene Montrestelli Tapping Q&A. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Montrestelli and Tapping Q&A.